Shalom, and welcome back to B'nai Noach Academy, Thoughts on the Torah. Please remember to subscribe, to hit the like button, and of course, most importantly, to share this wisdom and inspiration with friends and family. So when you look in the book of Numbers, chapter 19, it certainly would be worthwhile to review the entire chapter. This is the commandment relating to the para aduma, the red heifer. In short, the red heifer was a very unique, one-of-a-kind cow, and it had to meet specific criteria, and it was taken, and after it was slaughtered, instead of being offered on the altar, instead it was burnt, and the ashes would be used to mix with, quote, live water, meaning water coming from a fresh live stream, and that would be sprinkled on those who became ritually impure by means of coming in contact with the dead body. Now, the first verse, the opening, that is, of this commandment begins with God spoke to Moses, and he says to him, this is chukat haTorah. Literally, this is the statute of the Torah. Now, let me give you some background. In general, when you look throughout the Torah, all the commandments can be basically broken down into three groups. There are mishpatim, which literally translates into judgments, meaning those laws which make sense, meaning one's own judgment or the judgment of the common decent person could lead them to it, the basic morals and ethics. Then there are edut, which are all the various commandments which fall into the category of testimonials. They're there to commemorate something, to remind us of something. Let's say, for example, the Sabbath. That's a good, the best example, where God says to us, observe the Sabbath to remember that I rested on this day, and that will get you to remember that I am the one who created the world. I am the one who's in charge of the world. Then you have another great example is to celebrate Passover, to commemorate the exodus of Egypt, to remember that we were enslaved, and then to remember the concept of freedom and what we need to do about it. And then you have a third category, which is chukim, which means statutes, chok. As it says, there's an expression in the Midrash where God says to Moses, these are the type of things which, quote, I decree. This is the way I said it, and you don't have, so to speak, the permission even to think it over, to try to, make sense of it. In other words, you could perhaps understand it, but within limit. This is different, for example, than the first category of mitzvot, of commandments, which is mishpatim, like I said, the quote judgments, those that you could make sense out of. It makes sense. Don't steal, don't kill, don't hurt another person. If you hurt another person, then you're obligated to make it good for them, to compensate them. All these things make sense. And so to speak, even if God didn't appear on Mount Sinai and didn't give us the Torah, we would also come to many of these same conclusions. Then the testimonials, although they originate in the realm of God, meaning man would never have thought of it on their own, but once they've been given to us, it makes sense. But then the statutes, there are those commandments which, when you really start to examine them, they make no sense whatsoever, and they cannot make any sense, meaning they cannot make sense on a human level. Here is that classical example. Why is this one picked as chosen as the, so to speak, poster child of all the chukim, of all the commandments that fall under this category of statutes, meaning those commandments which you can't understand? Because here there's something so unique that really defies any whatsoever logic, even, so to speak, spiritual logic, even that of godly logic, if we may, to the extent that we can understand. Obviously, God has a good reason. And that is, as you read along, you find that the person who dedicates himself to handle the waters, to bring about purity to the other person, he himself becomes impure. and he himself needs to now seek out a means of purity, albeit a far less than getting sprinkled with the mixture of water and ashes from the golden calf. From the red heifer, forgive me. But still, there is a certain level of impurity. And the question is, how could that be? Here he is giving from himself, giving for another, making sure that the other person is now in a state of purity, and he himself becomes impure. And that's why this falls under the category of chukim, the statutes that we cannot understand, because it really defies any whatsoever logic. It does not make sense. It cannot make sense. But it does, however, teach us a lesson that sometimes in life, whether we understand it or not, when we're giving to others, yes, it costs us, and sometimes it can cost us the very same thing. You give to others, and typically when you give to others, the reward is that you yourself grow, but still there could many times be the reality in the scenario that you need to pay a price. And of course, you can ask yourself, why should I do it? I don't want to do it. Why should I sacrifice for myself? Why should I pay this price when I'm not going to get anything from it? It's going to actually have a negative effect on me, but it's going to help another person. In this case, it's going to help them spiritually. It's going to help another person have a better quality of life, whether it's a material quality or a spiritual quality. Why should I pay the price? And here we see that although we cannot understand it, but this is an ideal. This is something that the Torah chooses to represent all those commandments that fall under this category by saying, this is the statute of the Torah. It's not the only one, but this represents it in the highest form. So go out there, help another person. Typically, you're going to get so much back. But don't do it for that purpose. Do it genuinely to help another, to contribute to another person, to others, even if at the moment you're doing it, it's going to cost you. And sometimes not only at the moment, even if you're going to have to, quote, pay for it, but still do it for another, because this is ultimately God's will, whether we understand it or not.